I have seen many strange things in my tenure as senior containment officer at the Galactic Penitentiary Complex Alpha 9, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to what happened with prisoner 7163, known to her own species as Athena Monroe. Let me tell you something about humans. They are weird. Like really weird. My species, the Voraxians, has conquered 87 planetary systems, established trade with over 200 alien civilizations, and even survived the great cosmic purge of the Zentari Empire. But humans? They confuse us. They are soft, fragile creatures with no natural defenses. No claws, no armored plating, no venom sacs, not even a decent set of fangs. And yet, Officer Kalzak, the new prisoner transport has arrived, my assistant Rule announced, interrupting my morning nutrients absorption. His eye stalks were twitching nervously, which they always did when he was anxious. The human female is not what we expected. I snorted through my respiratory flaps. What, did they send us another screamer? Remember that ambassador who wouldn't stop demanding to see the manager of this establishment for 3 solid days? No, sir. This one is quiet. Too quiet. I slid from my hovering rest pod and adjusted my uniform. Well, that's a welcome change. Let's meet our newest guest, shall we? The first time I saw Athena Monroe, I wasn't impressed. Humans all look somewhat similar to Voraxian eyes, bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical, with those strange fur patches on their heads. This one was medium height for her species, with dark fur, no hair. They call it cropped short against her skull. Her eyes were an unusual shade that I later learned humans call hazel. She stood perfectly still in her containment field, watching me with an unsettling calm. Prisoner 7163, Athena Monroe of Earth, I read from the datapad. Charged with espionage, sabotage, and theft of classified Galactic Council technology. Sentenced to 12 orbital cycles in maximum security containment. I looked up at her. That's a significant sentence for a human. Most of your kind don't survive half that long in our facilities. Her response? A smile, not a frightened one, not a pleading one. Just a small, knowing curve of those strange flexible lips that humans have. Is something amusing, prisoner? I asked, my dorsal spines rising slightly in irritation. Not at all, Officer Kalzak, is it? Her voice was steady, controlled. I'm simply adjusting to my new home. 12 years isn't so long in the grand scheme of things. That should have been my first warning sign. Humans typically break down when they hear their sentences. They cry, they beg, they offer bribes or information. This one acted like she was checking into a vacation resort. Take her to cell block D, maximum security protocols. I ordered Rule. Full scan every 6 hours, nutrient delivery twice per day, waste reclamation as standard. As my guards led her away, she turned her head slightly. Looking forward to our next chat, Officer Kalzak. I didn't realize then how prophetic those words would be. The first year of Athena's imprisonment was unremarkable. She followed routines, never caused trouble, and spent most of her time sitting quietly in her cell. The psyche evaluators were baffled. Most humans exhibit deteriorating mental states within months of isolation in our facilities, but her readings remained stable. Too stable? I don't trust it, I told my superior, Warden Graxis, during our quarterly review. The human is planning something. Graxis, with his 6 eyes and perpetually annoyed expression, waved a clawed appendage dismissively. You are being paranoid, Kalzak. The monitors show nothing unusual. She exercises precisely 43 minutes daily. She consumes all her nutrient paste without complaint. She even participates in the optional educational programs. That's exactly my point. No human behaves this rationally in captivity. They are emotional creatures. They break. Graxis made the clicking sound that served as our species' equivalent of a sigh. Fine. Increase surveillance if it makes you feel better. But don't waste resources chasing phantoms. I doubled the scans, added motion detectors sensitive enough to track her pulse from across the cell, and personally reviewed her activity logs daily. But nothing. She was a model prisoner, which only made me more suspicious. In her second year, she started talking to the guards, not begging or complaining, just casual conversation, asking about their families, their careers, their home worlds. And here's the disturbing part, they answered her. Ardent Voraxian guards, trained to resist psychological manipulation, and found themselves chatting with this human female as if she were a colleague rather than a dangerous criminal. Guard Nexus, how many spawn did you say hatched last season? I overheard her asking one morning. 17. Can you believe it? My life mate and I were expecting maybe 10 at most, Nexus replied cheerfully, his mandibles clicking with parental pride. I reprimanded him severely afterward. She's gathering intelligence. Personal details about our staff, our procedures, our weaknesses. With all due respect, sir, Nexus replied, looking genuinely confused. She was just being friendly. She even remembered it was my spawning season. Most of my clutchmates forgot. That was when I realized what she was doing, something far more dangerous than plotting an escape. She was building relationships, creating connections, making herself seem human. No, that's not quite right. Making herself seem like a person, not just a prisoner. By the third year, half my staff was calling her Athena instead of prisoner 7163. She had learned basic Voraxian, enough to exchange pleasantries in our native tongue. She had started teaching some of the guards human games like chess and poker, fashioning crude playing pieces from her meal containers. I confronted her during an inspection. What's your game, human? What are you planning? She looked up from the small board where she'd been playing some strategy game with the nutrient pellets. Game? I'm just trying to survive, Officer Kalzak. Same as anyone. No one survives 12 years in Alpha 9, especially not soft creatures like humans. She smiled that unsettling smile again. Then I guess I will have to be the first, won't I? In her fourth year, the incident occurred. It was during third shift, when most prisoners were in their sleep cycle. The alarms blared, waking me from my rest pod. A prison riot not uncommon in facilities like ours, but always dangerous. I rushed to the security center to find chaos on the monitors. A group of Zentari prisoners had overwhelmed 2 guards and were attempting to access the central control hub. If they succeeded, they could potentially deactivate the containment fields throughout the entire facility. Status report. I barked. Sir, the Zentari broke through in Section 12. Rule stammered. They have taken Guard Nexus and Guard Vrex hostage. They are demanding a ship and safe passage out of the system. Standard procedure. Activate the neural disruptors and… We can't, sir, Rule interrupted, his eye stalks drooping in distress. They have disabled the disruptors in that section, and they are threatening to kill the hostages if we try to breach. I cursed in all 4 Voraxian dialects. The Zentari were brutal, 6-limbed predators with exoskeletons that could withstand most standard weapons. A direct assault would result in casualties, both guards and, more importantly, to the Galactic Council, expensive prison infrastructure. As I debated our options, a voice spoke from behind me. I can help. Yow. I turned to find Athena Monroe standing in the doorway, flanked by 2 very confused-looking guards. What is she doing here? I roared. Get her back to her cell immediately. Sir. One guard began hesitantly. She says she knows the Zentari. Says she can talk them down. That's absurd. Return her too? 3 of those Zentari were transferred here from the Proxima Detention Center 6 months ago, Athena interrupted calmly. I was briefly held there before my trial. We understand each other. You expect me to believe you are friends with Zentari warriors? I scoffed. Dan. She shrugged those flexible human shoulders. Not friends. But we share a common language. They don't think outsiders know a prison dialect. Let me talk to them. What do you have to lose? Besides more hostages. My career, for starters. She stepped closer, her hazel eyes fixed on mine. Officer Kalzak, in the 4 years I have been here, have I ever caused trouble? Have I ever given you reason not to trust me? That was precisely the problem. She'd been too perfect, too cooperative. And now she wanted access to a prison riot? It had to be part of some elaborate escape plan. Before I could refuse again, the main screen flashed with an alert. One of the hostages had been injured. Blood-purple Voraxian blood spattered the camera lens. Sir Rule whispered, "That's Nexus. They have cut off one of his appendages." I remembered how Nexus had spoken about his 17 spawn. How he'd played those human games with Athena. How he'd called her by name. "Fine," I hissed. "But you will wear a neural restraint collar, and if you make one suspicious move, I will fry your primitive human nervous system myself. Understood?" She nodded once. Understood. What happened next still features in my sleep cycle nightmares. We escorted Athena to Section 12, where she stood before the barricaded door and began making sounds. Horrible, guttural, clicking sounds that approximated the Zentari battle language but emerged impossibly from her human vocal apparatus. And for several excruciating minutes, she conversed with the riot leaders through the door. Then, unbelievably, the barricade moved. The door slid open, and one massive Zentari warrior stepped out, its chitinous plates gleaming under the emergency lights. It loomed over Athena, easily 3 times her size, with razor-sharp forelimbs that could slice through Voraxian armor. They stared at each other, the tiny human and the monstrous insectoid, in absolute silence. Then Athena did something that stopped my cardiac pumps. She stepped forward and pressed her forehead against the Zentari's faceplate, a gesture of deep respect in their culture, one that left her completely vulnerable to decapitation. The Zentari warrior's mandibles quivered. It raised one lethal limb and gently tapped Athena's shoulder in return. 10 minutes later, the hostages were released. The Zentari were back in their cells, and I was staring at this human female as if seeing her for the first time. "How?" was all I could manage to ask. "I listened," she replied simply. "During my time at Proxima, I listened to them talk when they thought no one could understand. They are not just warriors, you know. They are exiles, the last of their hive. They are not fighting for freedom, they know that's impossible. They just want to die with dignity. And you promised them this dignity." Her expression turned hard, reminding me that beneath her cooperative exterior was the woman who had committed crimes serious enough to earn 12 years in the galaxy's most secure prison. "I promised them nothing but truth. That killing guards wouldn't bring them honor. That there are better ways to be remembered." She met my gaze steadily. "I also suggested that the prison might consider allowing them certain cultural observances that have been denied. Small things, but significant to them. I should have sent her back to her cell with increased restrictions. I should have reported her dangerous level of influence over other prisoners. Instead, I found myself asking, what sort of observances? And that was how prisoner 7163, Athena Monroe, began her transformation from model captive to something far more remarkable and dangerous. By the end of her 4th year at Alpha 9, she had become an unofficial liaison between species that had been killing each other for millennia. Zentari warriors would calm at her approach. Voraxian guards would seek her advice on handling difficult prisoners. Even the gelatinous Blorp Collective, which communicates exclusively through chemical signals, seemed to respond to her presence. The warden called me to his office after receiving my quarterly report. "You have permitted a human prisoner to take on administrative responsibilities?" Graxus's voice rose to a pitch that hurt my auditory membranes. "Have you gone completely deranged, Kalzak?" "Sir, she's still under constant surveillance, and the neural collar remains in place. But her intervention has reduced violent incidents by 73% in the sections where she's been active. She's a prisoner, a human spy who stole Council technology." "Yes, sir. And she's also the most effective rehabilitation specialist I have ever seen." I couldn't believe I was defending her, but the numbers didn't lie. Recidivism rates among released prisoners who have interacted with her program have dropped to near zero. Graxus's facial tentacles writhed in agitation. The council will have my carapace for this, but continue your experiment. Document everything. If she shows any sign of exploitation or escape planning, terminate the program immediately. I bowed respectfully. Of course, Warden. As I turned to leave, Graxus added, and Kalzak, don't get attached. She's still going to serve her full sentence. The council was very clear about that. I nodded, but as I walked back to my office, I wondered if Athena Monroe would ever truly be imprisoned again, regardless of physical confinement. Somehow, without weapons or technology or even natural defenses, this soft, strange human had begun to transform one of the most brutal environments in the galaxy. And she still had 8 years left to serve. What none of us realized then, not me, not Warden Graxus, not even the mighty Galactic Council, was that Athena Monroe's imprisonment wasn't a punishment. It was the beginning of a legend. Year 5 of Athena Monroe's imprisonment marked a turning point for Alpha 9. What began as an unofficial liaison role soon evolved into something the Galactic Council had never anticipated: a human-led rehabilitation program within the galaxy's most notorious maximum security facility. And you want to do what? I asked, staring at the proposal hovering on my datapad. Athena sat across from me in the administrative conference chamber, still wearing her neural restraint collar, still technically prisoner 7163. But the way she carried herself, confident, composed, purposeful, made it easy to forget she wasn't a fellow officer. Cross-species conflict resolution training, she repeated, as if proposing something as simple as a menu change in the nutrition distribution center. Each major species has different communication styles, different conflict triggers, different reconciliation rituals. Most prison violence stems from cultural misunderstandings. I flicked through her detailed proposal with my talon. And you believe you, a human who's only encountered most of these species in captivity, can teach hardened criminals to play nicely together? Her lips curved in that now familiar smile. I have had 4 years to study the galaxy's most dangerous beings up close, Officer Kalzak. How many cultural anthropologists get that opportunity? You are not an anthropologist. You are a spy and a thief. She didn't flinch. I'm both, actually. Before my career change, I was a xenocultural specialist for Earth's diplomatic corps. That's why I was selected for the mission that landed me here. This was new information. In 5 years, she'd never discussed her crime or her background. I narrowed my primary eyes. Is this supposed to make me trust you more or less? Neither. It's just context for why this program could work. She leaned forward, those hazel eyes intent. The Zentari incident proved that communication can prevent violence. Imagine extending that principle throughout Alpha 9. Against my better judgment, against all Voraxian security protocols, and definitely against what the Warden would have approved had I consulted him first, which I deliberately didn't. I authorized a pilot program in Cell Block D. If one guard gets injured, I warned her, if one prisoner uses this as an opportunity for violence, it ends immediately. And you will spend the remainder of your sentence in solitary confinement. She nodded solemnly. Understood. 3 months later, violent incidents in Cell Block D had decreased by 89%. 6 months later, the Warden grudgingly approved expansion to 3 additional cell blocks. By the end of Athena's 5th year, even the Galactic Council was receiving reports about the Alpha 9 experiment, as they called it. A human prisoner was succeeding where millennia of galactic corrections policies had failed. They are sending an observer, Warden Graxus informed me, his facial tentacles twisted in knots of anxiety. And Counselor Jules himself. I nearly choked on my nutrient supplement. The head of the Security Council? Here? Apparently, our little human pet project has attracted high-level attention. Graxus paced his office, his claws clicking nervously against the polished floor. This could either elevate our careers to galactic prominence or end with both of us processing waste matter on a mining colony. When I informed Athena about the impending visit, She simply nodded and asked, "When should we schedule the demonstration?" "Demonstration? There will be no demonstration. Counselor Jules is coming to observe standard operations, not to watch a human prisoner perform tricks." She gave me a look that, after 5 years, I recognized as her the Varaxian is being obtuse again expression. "Officer Kalzak, he's coming to see the program in action. We should show him our most successful interventions. The Zentari Blorp shared meditation sessions. The Draconid Varaxian Cooperative Kitchen Duty. The Multi-Species Conflict Resolution Council." I sputtered in protest, but of course she was right. Counselor Jules hadn't achieved his position by wasting time. He wanted to see results. The day of the visit, I was a nervous wreck. My scales were shedding, my spines were fully extended in stress position, and I'd accidentally sprayed defensive musk twice during morning briefing. By contrast, Athena appeared perfectly calm, dressed in the modified uniform we'd approved for her new role, still prison issue, but with a small insignia indicating her program coordinator status. Counselor Jules was imposing even by Galactic Council standards. Standing nearly 3 meters tall with gleaming obsidian scales and 4 arms ending in precision manipulators, he represented one of the founding species of the Council. His kind had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out which end of a spear to hold. So, his translator implant rendered his subsonic rumbles into standard galactic. "This is the human who has revolutionized our penitentiary system." Athena bowed respectfully. "I wouldn't claim revolution, Counselor. Merely some modest improvements in cross-cultural communication." Jules' multifaceted eyes rotated to focus on her. "Modest. Reports indicate a 64% reduction in violent incidents across 4 cell blocks. A 92% decrease in guard injuries. And, most remarkably, a rehabilitation success rate triple the galactic average." She maintained her composure, though I noticed a slight flush in her cheeks, a human physiological response indicating emotion. "The prisoners did the hard work. I just provided a framework." "Show me," Jules commanded. What followed was the most extraordinary tour in Alpha 9's history. Zentari warriors demonstrated peaceful conflict resolution techniques they'd developed with Blorp collectives. Former enemies from the Draconid Varaxian border wars prepared nutrition together in the communal kitchen. A council comprising 7 different species, all convicted of violent crimes, explained how they now mediated disputes among prisoners. Throughout it all, Athena narrated with professional detachment, giving credit to the prisoners and guards who participated. But anyone with functioning sensory organs could see that she was the linchpin. The way different species looked to her for guidance, the subtle hand gestures she used to redirect conversations, and the respectful attention she commanded from beings who could tear her apart with minimal effort, it was unlike anything I'd witnessed in my career. As we concluded the tour in my office, Counselor Jules was uncharacteristically silent for a full 3 minutes, an eternity in diplomatic terms. Finally, he addressed Athena directly. "Human, what is your goal here?" She met his gaze steadily. "To serve my sentence productively, Counselor." "Do not insult my intelligence," Jules rumbled. "You have transformed a maximum security prison into a rehabilitation center. You have influenced some of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals to adopt cooperative behaviors against their natural instincts. What do you hope to achieve?" And for the first time since I'd known her, Athena hesitated. Then she squared those fragile human shoulders. "A proof of concept, Counselor. Explain. Humans are newcomers to galactic society. We are physically weaker than most species, technologically behind many, and politically isolated. What we offer is perspective, the ability to see connections others miss." She gestured to the monitors showing various cell blocks. "If communication and cultural understanding can create peace in the galaxy's worst prison, imagine what might be possible on a larger scale." Jules' scales rippled in the pattern I recognized as deep contemplation. "You stole classified council technology. Was that also part of your perspective?" Her expression didn't change. "I was following orders, as was the agent who captured me. We were both pieces in a larger game. But that game doesn't serve either of our species in the long term. Fascinating, Jewel murmured. You speak of cooperation while admitting to espionage. I'm serving my sentence without complaint, counselor. I have never denied my actions or their consequences. But must those consequences be purely punitive, or can they be constructive? What happened next changed everything, not just for Athena Monroe, not just for Alpha 9, but for human galactic relations forever. Counselor Jewel laughed. Not the diplomatic chuckle used in council meetings, but a full, resonant bellow that made the walls vibrate. My spines flattened in alarm. In my entire career, I'd never heard a council member express such uninhibited emotion. Officer Kalzak, he said, when his laughter subsided, I require a private consultation with prisoner 7163. My protest died before it reached my vocal apparatus. One does not refuse a counselor. I bowed and left my own office, trying to ignore the sick feeling in my digestive sacs. They spoke for 2 hours and 17 minutes. When I was finally summoned back, Counselor Jewel was standing at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, while Athena sat quietly, her expression unreadable. The council has reached a decision regarding prisoner 7163, Jewel announced without preamble. Here it comes, I thought. She'd either be executed for somehow manipulating a council member, or her sentence is commuted, effective immediately. I blinked all 4 eyes in succession. Commuted? But she served less than half. The remainder of her sentence is converted to diplomatic service, Jewel continued as if I hadn't spoken. Prisoner 7163, former prisoner 7163 will establish a galactic cultural integration office in implementing her methodology throughout council space. I stared at Athena, who looked as surprised as I felt. You are freeing her? After what she did? Jewel turned, his massive form silhouetted against the starfield beyond the viewport. Officer Kalzak, the Council did not achieve galactic dominance by being stupid. When we encounter a valuable resource, we utilize it. He gestured toward Athena. This human has demonstrated an exceptional ability that none of our species possess to the same degree. It would be wasteful to keep such talent confined to a single prison facility, but the security implications will be addressed through appropriate monitoring and constraints. Jewel's tone indicated the discussion was over. Arrangements have been made. Transport will arrive tomorrow. See that she is prepared. After the counselor departed, I found myself alone with Athena, no longer my prisoner, apparently now some kind of diplomat. Consultant? Whatever her new title, the power dynamic had shifted seismically. Did you plan this? I demanded. Was this your scheme all along? She shook her head, looking genuinely bewildered. I expected to serve my full sentence. This is unexpected. What did you say to him during those 2 hours? We talked about perspective. About how different species perceive the same problems. About how a multi-species society requires multi-species solutions. She met my gaze. I told him what I have learned from you, Kalzak. From me? I scoffed. I'm your jailer. You are the officer who gave a human prisoner a chance to prove her theories, against all protocol and probably against your better judgment. Her voice softened. That took courage. Before I could respond, my communication implant buzzed with an incoming message, new orders from Central Command. I read them, then read them again, certain there must be some mistake. Problem? Athena asked. I have been reassigned, as liaison to the new Galactic Cultural Integration Office. I looked up at her. Your office, apparently. Her face broke into a genuine smile, not the careful, measured expression she usually wore, but something brighter, more human. Well, Officer Kalzak, it seems we will be colleagues now. And that's how it began. The legend of Athena Monroe, the human prisoner who entered the galaxy's most secure facility as a spy and emerged as an architect of peace. Within a year, her methodology had been implemented in 27 prison facilities across Council space. Within 3 years, it had expanded to diplomatic missions, trade negotiations, and conflict resolution between warring systems. Today, 10 years after her release, the Galactic Cultural Integration Office employs thousands of representatives from hundreds of species. Violent crime rates have fallen to historic lows. 3 previously intractable interspecies conflicts have reached peaceful resolutions. And at the center of it all is the human who once was prisoner 7163. I asked her recently, during a rare quiet moment between crises, whether she ever regretted getting caught on that espionage mission all those years ago. She considered the question with typical human thoughtfulness. If I hadn't been caught, I'd never have seen the inside of Alpha 9. I'd never have learned what I did about different species under pressure. I'd never have had the chance to test my theories in the most challenging environment possible. She smiled at me the same smile that had unnerved me during our first meeting. And I'd never have met you, Kalzak. So it was all part of some grand human plan? I asked, only half joking. She laughed. Hardly. But humans have a saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I still don't understand what citrus fruit has to do with interstellar diplomacy, but I have learned not to underestimate human idioms or humans themselves. The Galactic Council once considered humans a minor species, physically weak, technologically primitive, barely worth monitoring. Now, no major council decision is made without consulting the perspective of Athena Monroe or one of her trained human specialists. Some of my fellow Voraxians call it the human infiltration. I call it the most effective prison rehabilitation program in galactic history. After all, Athena Monroe didn't just rehabilitate Alpha 9's most dangerous prisoners. She rehabilitated the entire galaxy.